beautiful afternoon in November. I've got wood smoke just drifting across the shot, which is a pure coincidence. I'm at Midwest Moto and actually burning some pallets. It's not quite as romantic as it sounds, but nonetheless it does make it quite atmospheric in here. The bike in front of me is a Royal Enfield Classic 350, and I just wanted to revisit this as perhaps my favourite Royal Enfield. And obviously I love most of the lineup, particularly the Meteor 350, but the Classic 350 is just an absolute gem of a bike. Behind me is my very own bike, the BSA Gold Star 650, which I think carries forward as much of the Classic 350's DNA as it can, whilst having 2.5 times the power output. This bike I've got in front of me is £2,949 and it's got 600 miles on it. And given that information, why would you buy a Classic 650 or indeed any of the new 650 Royal Enfields? Because the Classic 350 gives you, and let's just turn the bike on so you can hear it. How nice is that? In fact, I think it even sounds nicer than the BSA. It's such a subtle but pleasing exhaust note. Okay, right, wait for it. We'll go and turn the BSA on. Just listen to that. Fuel pump whines a bit more when you do the BSA, doesn't it? Now this has got a decat, so it's going to be a little bit different. It's got to settle down a little bit. Right, that's the apples to apples comparison. Right, now let's just revisit the Classic 350. Something about the Classic 350 just works, doesn't it? It might only have 20 horsepower, but its character is absolutely through the roof. It's an absolutely lovely little machine. Yeah, it's a really nice little motorcycle. I'm going to take the Classic 350 out. You all know this bike. We're just going to have a little ride round. It's a beautiful day and let's just have some fun and remind ourselves what this bike's all about. Right, let's just put our gloves on. We're at the Dog at Dunley, which many of you will have seen before. Oh, there you go. Many of you will have seen me stall a motorcycle before as well. Off we go. Now, this is, let me just put this down. This is sort of quintessential English riding country. And we're on a quintessentially English riding motorcycle. A bimbling bike of epic proportions. This is the Classic 350. Now, we have only got 20 horsepower. And I think everybody feels obliged to say that in every review or every video about the Classic 350, but I think we should probably all train ourselves not to fixate on that, because it's not really relevant to the question. It's not really relevant to form an opinion about the Classic 350, and I think most owners are not needing any more power. The bike gives them what they want out of it. Now the power sort of like builds slowly. It's the opposite to sort of a frantic revvy bike. You roll on the power and it sort of like compounds over time, like compound interest. That's the only way I can think to describe the way a J Series 350 builds power. One of the amazing things about it is it's incredibly economical, and you'll just be riding all day. I mean, I've got what, 3/5 of a tank here. I could probably go 150 miles on that without needing to refill. It's absolutely amazing. I'm already feeling that it's a little bit more nimble, I think, than the BSA. Well, is it? I guess my handlebars are a little bit closer, which makes me feel a little bit more like flickable, but maybe that's just I'm imagining it. I mean, unlike the BSA, there is no pretense of acceleration. The BSA is a fairly slow bike by modern standards, but it gives you, at least if you drop a gear, you can kind of get a feel of going fast. Whereas a Royal Enfield J Series, you don't get that at all. There's no sort of pretending or illusions or anything. It's, yeah, you're compounding power over time, compounding speed. So that's fifth. Remember, you've only got 5 gears, and top speed is actually not reached in 5th gear, it's reached in 4th gear. So 5th is very much an overdrive. There's a beautiful sunset over there, isn't it, through the clouds. I mean, and that really sums up, let's just roll around this bend, that sums up these little 350s. You get to take in the environment, the sights, the smells, the sounds, and you don't really do that on a bike with, say, 60 horsepower plus, because you've got the power there, and more often than not you're using it, and that requires concentration, and it takes you out of your appreciation of what's around you, basically. Now, contrary to the Meteor, I've got a little bit of a bend in the knee, and that was one of the things that I first identified as different between the Meteor and the Classic, was the foot peg position. This is a very traditionally British kind of roadster type seating position, a very classic feeling in its ride, as well as the power in the engine. But I almost like lugging it in the gears just to hear that, the thump thump thump. Because don't forget, the Classic 350 and Meteor 350, they are the bikes that have a genuine long stroke. The Triumph 400s don't have it, the BSA doesn't have it, any of the Chinese bikes are all short stroke. This is the only one that's got that genuine thump thump thump, as we heard earlier when we compared the BSA to the Classic. I'm going to pull over here, let this car go past, and then we'll just test for jerkiness. I suspect, being that it's a very under-stressed engine, that there is no jerkiness at all. Let this lorry just pull off. Right, no one behind me, so I'll indicate to come out. Yeah, I mean, it's really, really smooth. Right, there's a car coming, so the engine's why people love it. Right, as we approach this junction, I'll do what I normally do here and just put my feet flat down, and yeah, it's perfect. I can sort of stand up with a little space between my bum and just pop out here, and the seat, so you got no worries at all if you're short in the leg, which I actually am. I have a 30-inch inside leg. Very, very easy to get on with the Classic 350. Use the brakes. Brakes are good, but the rear isn't quite as fierce as the newer Enfields. The Shotgun and Super Meteor, and no doubt the Classic 650. I love the way you just ride this bike, and you're just in the environment. The rider's view is very beautiful as well, and you've got the analog there and everything, and then the little peak, the little metal headlight peak. I think they could do with updating these to the alloy ones, and perhaps the grips as well to the Coke bottle style, but that's just picking hairs, and Royal Enfield are entitled to keep those trick items for the 650 bikes, and so that's then, you know, a little bit of a premium feel to the 650s over the 350s. I think the fact you can't go fast is one of the things that makes this bike feel the way it is, because you can't ride it fast. There's no choice, and so you are, without, yeah, you've made your bed sort of thing. You are having the classic riding experience. With the classic 650, it'll have the power there, because the newer Royal Enfields do seem to have a bit of poke from the 650cc twin, perhaps more so than the original Interceptor. Just a sort of bum of the, what do they call it, bum dyno, whatever it's called. The yeah, feel as you ride the bike, not anything verified scientific, just the feel of it. And don't forget, this bike I think is 210-ish kilos. I think it's a smidge heavier than the Meteor 350, and the classic 650 is I almost said 600. It is 243 kilos, so it's quite a lot heavier if you're pushing it in and out of the shed. When I was getting this bike ready to go, the guys at Midwest Moto are very kind of thorough. They make sure everything's ready. They do the tire pressures, they do oil the chain and everything, just so I can, you know, have a safe riding experience. I really appreciate that. But one of the things I noticed when they were doing that, I put the bike onto the centre stand. It's how easily it goes onto the centre stand. Not only is it sort of balanced perfectly, but it's also got those little grab handles that allow you to pull the bike up, and it just works. It's just the physics of it are just absolutely a doddle to get the bike on the centre stand. Oh man, this is really nice. Sunset ride on a classic 350. I might call the video that. That's not clickbaity. That's exactly what's happening. Sunset ride on a classic 350. I watched Two Wheel Willie's latest video, and he was talking about having another classic 350, and that is the kind of bike that they are. You just have another one and another one, and if you sold it, you might come back to it. They're so affordable, and this particular bike is, yeah, £2,949 from Midwest Moto, and it's a hell of a bargain. I think you're saving about £1.5 grand on new. Oh, the ride is lovely as well. I think the ride's a little bit plusher than the BSA, a little bit better damped because it doesn't bounce around as much. It's one of those bikes that you get off feeling exactly the same as when you got on. And I like that kind of bike. I don't anymore like the kind of bikes that are very adrenaline, very kind of nerve dangling. Fast bikes typically are like that, because you get on, you hair about on them, and then you feel a little bit kind of on edge after it. Whereas this bike, you just come off it perfectly relaxed, and I'm just feeling sort of like out there with nature. I mean, look at that beautiful church, the sunset clouds above it. Well, here's a test. I think that's 5th gear, 45 miles an hour, throttles wide open. So I was guilty as every other person who rides this bike on YouTube. I do comment on the speed or power, but It is building. Look, we're creeping to 50, getting into the power band in that gear. And this sign will tell us we're on a 13% incline. No weather protection or anything on this bike. You don't really need it. You're not going fast enough anyway to get a lot of wind blast. And I genuinely think you could tour on this bike. I said a few years ago now that a Meteor 350 wouldn't be good for touring because of the power. But I think I'm okay to admit that I've sort of changed my view, changed my stance on that now, and I've become actually more of a fan of what's loosely termed retro touring. Touring with a sort of old-fashioned mindset, paper maps and seeing what you can see, and not about big miles or big speeds, big adrenaline. Just to kind of immerse yourself in the culture of another country. Motorcycle travel, should we say, not motorcycle adventure. That's really my thing, and I think the classic 350 kind of sums that up. This road's just such a good road for this bike. I tell you what, I want to do a tour on a classic 350. I just think it'd be really good. So up into, that's 5th, okay. Bear in mind this bike's only got 613 miles on it, so the engine will actually increase in pep as we get up to 1200, 1500 miles. Look at that, man. There's something about winter, the way the light falls is just absolutely stunning. But yeah, the pep of this engine will increase as it gets run in. It happens with most Royal Enfields. Now, where does this bike sit compared to the 450 lump, or where does this engine sit compared to the 450? The 450 obviously has double the power, but for me it's not double the engine. I think the 450 is very frantic, and you sort of have a type of person who wants a small capacity motor, and they want the lightweightness, but they want 40 horsepower. And that is like the Triumphs, it's like the Fantic Caballero, and Royal Enfield have sort of had to meet that sort of spec in their new 450 engine. But I think it's, honestly, I think it's lost some of the feel that the 350 has. Now, it's a bold statement, but I'd probably rather the 350 lump than the 450 lump. I mean, listen to it. You don't need 6 gears, and I know I'm not going to do it today, but the top speed of these bikes is about 70 something miles an hour, just low 70s. Mickey Mouse mirrors, as Tame would say, but you can see everything out of them, nice and clear, nice and big. No vibes because of that balancer shaft that Royal Enfield cleverly incorporated into the design. The other bike I quite like in Royal Enfield's lineup is the Scram 411. I love the colours, I love the fact it's got a little bit of off-road credential, and yeah, I just think that could be a potential bike, but it's just a little bit too slow perhaps for a travel bike, and I think I'd rather have the 350 than the 411. Because the 350 you've got bags of character, whereas the Scram just feels a little bit old. I do love the look of it though. Right, we're going to do a little bit of run and gun just to finish this this video off, because I'm losing the light, it's getting dark behind me. But that bike there it's just a magical experience riding it. There's something special. It's that unquantifiable thing that makes Royal Enfield Royal Enfield, and it's all wrapped up in one little bike. You just can't really experience anything like that in any other bike, and you love a classic 350 not despite its 20 horsepower, but because it's got 20 horsepower. So when all these other new exciting bikes come out, the Bear 650, the classic 650, I would say spare a thought for the plucky little soul behind us, the classic 350, because it probably is, and don't tell the Meteor 350 this, but this is probably the best bike Royal Enfield offer at the current time. And if you're to buy it second hand, this one behind me is £2,949 at Midwest Moto. It's such a bargain. It's got 600 miles on it. Even in that black, which is one of the least popular colours, it just all pops, doesn't it? It just looks absolutely jaw-dropping. Now I'm just staring at the phone screen, just looking at it. It's just perfect. If you own a classic 350, then I just doff my cap to you. You've got an absolutely brilliant bike, and why would you give it up? Yeah, it just offers something that you can't get. Alright guys, well, I'm going to end the video there. I hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, let me know your thoughts on this little plucky creature. I'll be interested to know.